everyone hyped up the much ballyhooed beginning of the Luka Doncic era with the Lakers. Now, will it be a long-term relationship that blossoms into glorious moments, or will it be a cautionary tale where people say the Mavericks were right? The crazy, wackadoodle Mavericks were right about Luka all along. If you were betting, you'd likely bet on the Mavericks not being right based on history. But let us discuss. So I don't know if you saw the game or not. It was broadcast nationally. It was a late pickup. Normally, the Lakers and Utah Jazz, not there. You'd rather watch an actual jazz band than the Utah Jazz at this point. In fact, I think if you put an actual jazz band on the court, they would be more competitive than the NBA variety of the Jazz. So you had the usual Hollywood Fs out there. Will Ferrell, Adele. I guess she's engaged to LeBron's agent. How about that? Yeah. She's all about that action. Adele. So they were all, a bunch of other people. I don't even know who these people are anymore. But they were all hanging out, watching. And Luka, how did he do? Did he score 50 points? Did he have the greatest Laker debut of all time? No. Did he score 30 points and have like 17 rebounds? No. How about 25 points? Did Luka score 25 points against the Jazz? No. How about he had to get 20, right? Come on, 20 points? He could do that blindfolded. He got 20. No! Oh, my God. How about 15? Did Luka get 15 points? No. 14 points. 14 points. All these people all dressed up. They gave out T-shirts for a guy that scored 14 points. T-shirt night, 14 points. 23 minutes, the Lakers end up vaporizing the once proud Utah Jazz. Karl Malone and John Stockton not walking through that door there. Lakers led by as many as 34 points in a game that was much like the Super Bowl, over at halftime. No need to watch the second half. So let us discuss. How did Luka Doncic look in his Laker debut? So I've got Catwalk, Morgana the Kissing Bandit, and Morton's Kosher Salt. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make a migraine headache, which the hardy and loyal minions of the Dallas basketball team are likely suffering from, a migraine headache. So as far as to answer the question, how did Luka look? You've got the micro and the macro. In the micro, in the moment, he looked wobbly. He did. He didn't shoot the ball with gusto. He was 5 of 14. Really, what stood out was how bad he was from three-point range. 1 of 7. One of the all-time great three-point shooters, Luka. 1 of 7 from three-point range. Most of those shots were wide open, mind you. Maybe they cranked up the AC at the Crypt where the Lakers play. But the Jazz weren't playing much defense. They never play defense. That's why they blow. They're terrible. And then you got the podcaster, J.J. Redick, the coach there, who put Luka, this is great, on a minutes restriction. Is there anything stupider than a minutes restriction in the NBA? Isn't that one of like the 5 stupidest things you can possibly do? And I know the podcaster's not that bright, Mr. Redick, but podcaster Redick probably doesn't realize this. You're feeding the narrative that Luka needs to go to a fat farm, that he can't play more than X number of minutes. I mean, he was... Now, watching him on the court, he was strutting like he was going down the catwalk there, and he did a pirouette in his new laundry. And it did look, and this always is the case when you know someone in one uniform and then they switch uniform, it looked like a glitch in a video game. So I remember Tom Brady put on a Buccaneer uniform for the first. I'm not comparing Luka to Tom Brady, but it just, we're used to seeing Luka in the Mavericks laundry, and then you see him in that Laker uniform, you're like, that doesn't seem right. And it's like you watch these people in certain uniforms, and then they switch it up. You're like, whoa, what's going on with that? It's not the same way when Ohtani went from the Angels to the Dodgers. Although not many people watched him with the Angels, but it's still odd when you switch uniforms. But as far as the overall game, opening night here, and you talk about a soft launch, the Lakers, they did it right. They knew there was no chance of losing that game. That was a show-up, collect-a-win type game. They were dining al fresco at a mom-and-pop pizzeria, a startup, where there was just nobody there. I mean, the Jazz are everyone's homecoming opponent in the NBA, and yet again, that's the way it turned out. And where have you gone, Thurl Bailey and Greg Ostertag? They're not walking through that door. Now, turning the page. Will these ingredients with Luka and LeBron work when we get to the playoffs, which I think will start in like 7 months, the NBA playoffs? Season goes on forever. So will Luka and LeBron work for the Lakers in the playoffs? And in 2025, my vote is no. It will not work. You're asking me today. We do the show today. Now, do I think at some point it's going to work? Sure. But today, ask me this year, I don't see it. The Lakers will be one of these teams that's going to score a bunch of points, and they'll have great offensive numbers, and they'll beat a bunch of tomato cans up and all that. But I'm going to use the analogy here. It's a dated analogy, so you're going to have to Google it. And the Lakers are built right now like Morgana the Kissing Bandit. They're top-heavy, and they know that. They tried to correct that problem. They attempted to correct that issue. They tried to get a center, and then that went sideways because they know they're not good enough. And LeBron and Luka are designated hitters, and they don't play defense. I mean, LeBron will do 1 or 2 defensive plays a game so he gets some highlights, but the rest of the time he just kind of lollygags on defense. So neither one of those are defensive dynamos. And when they're both on the court at the same time, you have a tremendous liability. You will be on the power play on offense. You will be shorthanded on defense at 2 positions. So the only way that would work is if LeBron and Luka can combine for 90 to 95 points a game, which is not realistic on a regular basis in a 7-game playoff series. It's not sustainable. Therefore, the long-term, or short-term in this case, this year, does not look particularly promising. Where are you at also on the chatter here that the Lakers kowtowed to Luka, that he handpicked Hornets center Mark Williams, that Luka wanted the Lakers to trade for Mark Williams, and then the trade ended up being rescinded, but that came directly from the mouth of Luka. So it's not that shocking. I believe it. All right. My first thought is I believe it. My second thought is this again confirms our suspicions that Rob Pelinka doesn't really do anything. He's a middle manager, Rob Pelinka, and he's a sock puppet for whoever the Lakers choose to make the decisions, whether it was LeBron James. I guess they've now pivoted to Luka, and they get Luka dropped in Pelinka's lap. You think that was some kind of amazing GM work by Rob skinny suit, skinny jeans Pelinka? I don't think it was that at all. I think what happened is whether it was Adam Silver, if you buy into the grand NBA conspiracy that phone calls were made, or whether the Mavericks ownership wants to move to Las Vegas and they want to undermine the fan base in Dallas, one of those two, or maybe a combination of both. But it wasn't like Rob Pelinka just massaged Nico Harrison, and that is what led to that particular transaction. And it just dropped like manna from heaven. It dropped into their lap. And so Rob Pelinka, he had LeBron as the GM by proxy. And now you've got the shadow GM, Luka Doncic, making moves here. And the trade for Williams was rescinded, although apparently there's more to that story. That story's not over yet. Now, last word. So what can the Dallas Maverick fan, I would say fans, but I think we're down to one. I think there's one fan left that likes the Mavericks. So the Dallas Maverick fan, what can the Dallas Maverick fan take away from Dirk Nowitzki attending Luka's debut with the Lakers? Now, so a couple things. If you're the ownership in Dallas, you would look at that as treason, wouldn't you? If I'm not mistaken, the street outside the Mavericks arena is named Nowitzki Way. He's the franchise legend, and he's at a fork in the road. He's royalty for the Mavericks. The city honored him by renaming one of the streets outside the arena in his name, and Dirk, in a moment of weakness at a crossroads, the Mavericks were playing their own game on Monday, I believe, but Dirk was not there at the American Airlines Center. Instead, he was in L.A. watching Luka. So Nowitzki, what he did is he went to the airport, then he got into L.A., and he stopped by, there's a grocery store near LAX. He went there and he bought some Morton's kosher salt, and he poured the salt in the open wound is what he did. Standing with the insurgency, the uprising of the fan base, and you juxtapose the Luka debut with it being announced that Anthony Davis is not out a couple of days. He's not out a couple of weeks. He's out indefinitely. That Luka, the guy that he was traded for, Anthony Davis, has been KO'd. He is out indefinitely after his Maverick debut. You talk about twisting the knife. That is a knife twist situation.